Good day everyone, I'm teacher Aaron. I am here to report about designing classroom language test. So designing effective language test in the classroom is crucial for both teaching and learning. Well-designed tests ensure that assessment is accurate, fair, and meaningful. So before we start our topic, we have here some critical questions. What are the purpose or what is the purpose of the test? What are the objective of the test? How will the test specification reflect both the purpose and the objectives? How will the test task be selected and the separate items arranged? So we can answer those questions though we tackle about the types of test. So we have here types of test. First, language aptitude test, proficiency test, placement test, diagnostic test, and achievement test. Language aptitude test is designed to measure the capacity or general ability to learn a foreign language and ultimate success in that undertaking. It is also ostensibly designed to apply to the classroom learning of any language. There are two standardized aptitude tests that has been used in United States. First, Modern Language Aptitude Test, MLAT, by Carroll and Sapon. Second is Language Aptitude Battery, PILA, by Pimsleur of 1966. So we have here the components of MLAT. First, number learning. Second is phonetic script. Third is spelling clues. Fourth is word and sentences. Fifth is paired associates. So in MLAT, we have 5 components. First, number learning. The examinees must learn a set of numbers through oral input, then discriminate different combination of these numbers. So you have to learn set of numbers in number learning. So we have here the second one is about phonetic script. The examinees must learn a set of correspondence between speech sounds and phonetic symbols. So this comes from phonetics. So this is the set of correspondence between speech, sounds, and phonetic symbols. Third one is spelling clues. Examiners must read words that are somewhat phonetically and then select from a list the word whose meaning is closest to the designed word. So you have the clues and the spelling about the phonetics and the meaning. Fourth one is word and sentences. Examinees are given a keyword in a sentence that are asked to select a word in the second sentence that performs the same grammatical function as the keyword. So words and sentences we have here about the keyword. Fifth one is about paired associates. The examinees must quickly learn a set of vocabulary, words from another language, and memorize each meaning. So paired associate is about vocabulary and their meaning. So we have here the proficiency test. It is not limited to any one course, curriculum, or single skill in the language. Rather, it tests overall ability. Proficiency tests have traditionally consisted of standardized multiple choice items on grammar, vocabulary, reading comprehension, and oral comprehension. So proficiency test, this is about to assess the overall language ability regardless of what was taught in class. Sample TOEFL or IELTS, which measure English ability for academic or professional purposes. So that was proficiency test. Second one is placement test. Placement tests come in many varieties, assessing comprehension and production, responding to written and oral performance, open-ended and limited responses selection, example multiple choice, and gap-filling formats, depending on the nature of the program and its needs. So placement test, this is to determine the student's language level and place them in the appropriate class or level. For example, a test assessing grammar, vocabulary, reading and listening skills to decide if the student should be in intermediate or advanced English. Fourth one is diagnostic test. It is designed to diagnose a specified aspect of a language. A test pronunciation, for example, might diagnose the phonological feature of English that are difficult for learners and should therefore become part of the curriculum. Usually, such test offers a checklist of features of the administrator to use in pinpointing difficulties. So, the diagnostic test, this is to identify student strengths and weaknesses in specific language areas. For example, a grammar diagnostic test to check students' knowledge of verb tenses. So the last one is achievement test. Achievement tests are related directly to classroom lessons, units, or even total curriculum. Achievement tests are limited to particular material and addressing a curriculum within a particular time frame and are offered after a course has focused on the objectives in question. Achievement tests are often summative because they are administered at the end of the unit or term of the study. This is to measure what students have learned at the end of the course unit. For example, final exam covering all the units of English course. So we have here some practical steps to test construction. First is assessing clear and ambiguous objectives. This is to carefully look at everything that you think your student know or able to do based on the material that the students are responsible for. In other words, examine the objectives for the unit you are testing. So actually, it is very important for us that the objectives that we do are very reliable because your lesson will focus on your objectives. So we have here the form focus objectives. The form focus objectives, students will learn and recognize and produce the question with correct grammatical form and final pattern in simple conversation. Another example is communication skills. Students will stated completed actions and events in social conversation. Another example in reading skills, students will recognize irregular past tense of selected verbs in a story or essay. Another example is in writing skills. Students will write one paragraph story about a simple event in the past. Another one is drawing a test specification. Test specification for a classroom can be used as simple and practical outline of your test. For a large-scale standardized tests that are intended to be widely distributed and therefore are broadly generalized, test specifications are much more formal and detailed. So we have here the components that needs to be considered in drawing a test specification. First, you have a broad outline of the test. What skills will you test? What the items will look like. So we have here the devising test task. Devising appropriate task is a key part of classroom language assessment. Test tasks are the specific activities or questions students complete during the test. In short, carefully devised test tasks make assessment more accurate, meaningful, and learner-friendly. So we have here the example of devising test task. The oral interview, example oral interview. We have to start from warm-up questions. Second is the level check questions to probe and to wind down. So from warm-up to the conclusion, to wind down. So another one is design multiple choice test items. MCQs are common and effective assessment tool in language teaching. Testing when designed properly. Efficient assessment of a wide range of content. Objective scoring. Measures specific language or knowledge. Time saving for teachers. Useful for diagnostic and placement test. So we have here the guidelines in designing multiple choice items. First, in design each item to measure a specific objective. Second, state both STEM and option as simply and directly as possible. The third one is make certain that the intended answer is clearly and correct one. Fourth one, use items indices to accept, discard, or revise items. So we have here scoring, grading, and feedback. Scoring is a vital part of language testing process. It determines how students' performance is evaluated and interpreted. A clear, fair, and consistent scoring system ensures accurate result and meaningful feedback. So we have here the example of scoring. Percentage of grade and possible total correct. So in oral interview, we have 40%. For score, 5 to 1 range times 2 equals 40%. 40. Listening, 20%. 10 items at 2 points each equals 20. Reading, we have 20%. 10 items at 2 points each equals 20. Writing, 20%. 2 scores, 5 to 1 range times 2 equals 20 with a total of 100%. So we have here the grading. Grading is the process of converting student scores and meaningful marks, letters, or comments that summarize their performance. It plays a key role in education. So example in grading is, you will put A is equivalent to 90 over 100, B is equivalent to 80 over 89, C, 75 going to 79. So that would be your grading system. You will just put A or B or C. Last one is giving feedback. It is one of the most powerful tools in language learning and assessment. It helps students understand their performance, recognize mistakes, and improve. This is to identify their areas of success and challenge. So, in giving feedback, it is really important for us as teacher to give feedback to our students, because for them to be able to recognize or improve the things that they need to improve, and of course to recognize their mistake also. So that would be all. That would be the last part of my report. Thank you and God bless. I'm Teacher Aaron again. I have here the references at the bottom, so you can click that one for further information. So that would be all. Thank you and God bless.